Hello, my name is Dalene Allen, Executive Director of BNI Nova Scotia. That means Business Network International. And I'm here today to interview one of my amazing BNI members. This is Christine Isnor from ingagehr. Good morning.
Morning.
How are ya?
I'm doing well. How are you doing, Dalene?
Fantastic. We are going to learn to pivot, aren't we?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes, we are. I don't think we have a choice. So
exactly.
we shall.
And there's always a plus if we look for it, right? That silver lining. So I have to tell you, even though I ran a business for 30 years and had some employees, I had no idea what an HR person did. My company wasn't big enough, but let me tell you, when I have finally learned what an HR, human resources wizard like Christine here does, you want to go, every business needs her services. And the menu is extensive, but we're going to learn a little bit more about how Christine supports small business. So take it away, Christine.
Thank you. As you can imagine right now, I think people have a lot of questions of what's going on as far as how to navigate COVID-19, how to navigate remote business, how to keep your doors open, how you keep your clients happy, how to work with your employees, etc. So that in itself is probably more than an hour conversation, as we well know. But essentially, what HR does in small businesses is to help them best work with their employees in order to maximize their potential, their productivity, to make sure that they are in line with the needs and the vision and the values of the company so that small businesses can thrive and grow. So what I do is I recognize that, in a lot of cases, people and business owners feel like HR is something that's exclusive to when you hit a certain number of employees or when you hit a certain revenue target or you are big enough to have it. And over my years, I realized that some of the companies that need HR the most or need that support and that guidance to be able to make really amazing decisions for their company and for their employees are the smaller ones, because who wouldn't like to have an expert in their back pocket to be able to just quickly call up and ask one or two questions? And that's essentially my business model. Is I just make sure that I'm available and scalable to whatever a small business may need. So if they are looking to hire one or two people, or if they're looking to hire 15 people because they've hit this amazing growth strategy, then that's what I'm there to help. Or when it just comes to the smaller questions about how to navigate either promoting someone, giving them a raise, writing a policy, and unfortunately at times if it means that you have to say goodbye to an employee, how to effectively do that to make sure that you're within the parameters of legislation. So essentially my company, Engage HR, is just that. We just try to engage with business owners and give them the best possible HR support that we can so that they're maximizing the best potential of the employees that they have.
Excellent. Well, then I can think of a couple of BNI members who are just so thrilled with how you've helped them with staffing. One in particular, small law firm, and with minimum administrative staff. So finding somebody that had the talents that could really sit in that chair and immediately take over. Maybe you could share a little bit about how that happened, because I know they are so thrilled with everything that you did.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, a small law firm here in Atlantic, Canada, and I'm happy to say that they're growing and thriving, which is awesome to hear, particularly in these times. They had some turnover with an employee and a position that was actually quite critical for their business in order to be the front line and the face of the firm. So they had tried a couple of times themselves, and how hard, and it's true, how hard can recruiting be? And recruiting isn't all that difficult. Nothing that I do is it is rocket science. It's just when you do it for about 20 years, like I have, you get some hints and tips, and you just figure out a really good way to make sure that what you're looking for in the net that you're casting when you're trying to find really amazing talent is the right one for you. So essentially had a conversation with the firm's owner and just tried to get a really good sense of what her personality was, because more so in small businesses than perhaps even larger ones, having that fit and making sure that you're confident and comfortable with the person that is going to be sitting pretty much close to you and probably your right-hand person, depending on how big or small the business is. You want to make sure that you can get along with the person, and got to make sure that the person is seeing the same values and the same levels of successes that you are, and they want to see your company do well. So I just walked them through a process that we sent out the right posting that captured kind of their culture, that captured what they were looking for. We set up our screening process that I took a little bit away from their hands and had a third party kind of an objective opinion on, well, here's what I'm seeing. Tested some of those theories, and then by the time that the owner got to sit down and actually meet some of those candidates face to face, there was a sense of confidence that there was another person who had been through this, myself, and had a really good sense of how it was that we arrived at those really solid candidates. So when they got there, it became a conversation, and it ultimately became a really comfortable one with one particular candidate that they felt was a great fit. And that's what they ended up with, is somebody that they really, really had a good sense that they had scanned the market, found what they were looking for. And when they found what they were looking for, were able to kind of get that person up and running pretty quickly.
Well, I would call you a matchmaker, really.
Yeah, you know what, recruiting's an awful lot like dating, and I like to tell my clients, I'm like, would you let your mother pick your husband or your wife? And in a lot of cases, small businesses will outsource, almost exclusively, they'll outsource the process. And I understand why, because I mean, these larger firms are really good at what they do. They know the market, but sometimes, you know what, being involved, particularly when it comes to a small business recruit, being really hands-on involved is important. And if you're scared of it, or you feel like you don't know what you're doing, then you end up paying somebody a tremendous amount of money to find candidates that you feel are being presented to you, as opposed to you being part of the selection process. So, very similar to dating, you've got to get in there, you got to ask the right questions, you got to get that gut feel that, this is somebody I can work with on a day-to-day basis. And, businesses are like your children, and you want to be sure that you're really comfortable to be able to invite that person into your business family and grow and develop and nurture this baby of a business. So I just make sure they stay involved. I try to take the headache away from them as much as I can, but it's really, really important to me that by the end of it, they feel like they've been part of the process, and I'm not just handing them somebody that they have to work with. Like, it really needs to be a solid and a comfortable decision of the hire for them as well, for sure.
Wow. So right now we're in the middle of COVID-19, and that is impacting so many of us. So about your business, or how should business look at functioning during COVID-19?
So many questions. So just to give you a bit of a sense of what I've been doing for the last 47 days, every day it's about making sure that I have a really good handle and grasp on some of the federal and provincial announcements. They move like nobody's business. It's every day. There's either every day or every week, there's a new nuance to the programs that businesses are able to access. And it's really, really important for business owners right now, especially small business owners, to understand what might be available to them as far as either funding or grants, or even options on how to manage their staff. So what I've been doing for the last 45 days is working really closely with my current clients, and just helping them understand, okay, at what point am I either able to access a particular benefit, or I've hit a critical mass now, and I'm unfortunately going to have to lay those people off. How do I do that in a respectful way? And how do I do that in a way that when we're back up and running, I've maintained really positive relationships in order to bring those employees back? So as far as how to navigate this, it's like a belly button. Everybody's got a different format and way to come about this. And for some businesses, moving to a remote or a more online business present was easy, because a lot of them were very much remote and online. So it was just a minor tweak. It was just a matter of, do we look at more standardized and structured communications with our staff? For others, it was about closing doors and really trying to figure out how to navigate interacting and engaging and providing either goods or services with their existing clients, and then staying open. And how do you stay open? So my niche and my part of the business is really about how do we get the employees to be able to work into these conditions and these new structures and standards, et cetera. And a lot of the questions that are coming up right now from businesses is how do I maintain a level of productivity? What's too much communication with my staff? What can I expect from them? If I've got them on a wage subsidy program that's been sponsored by the federal government under the employee insurance program, you know, how does that work? How do I expect them to work, et cetera? So it's been a soup to nuts, Dalene, as far as questions. But the biggest thing for me has been to practice what I preach. So I'm online, I'm present, I'm available. I'm sifting through a lot of the COVID-19 information. I've been putting out bulletins both to my clients and as much as I can online, just for any businesses that are looking to understand the programs concisely, as opposed to having spending 3 or 4 hours just sifting through all the information, because it's like drinking through a fire hose right now online, and everybody has an opinion on what the program looks like, but people just want the details, like how does this apply to me, how do I utilize it, where do I go, etc. So it's about actively communicating with my business owners as much as possible, and then just providing some support to anyone out there that might need it from an HR perspective as well.
Wow. So you really can help a new client understand what the programs are and how they would apply to their businesses. And if a person's not comfortable in filling out the application form, you'd also be able to assist in that?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It's so, I want to touch on productivity right now, because I know that a lot of business owners are questioning the ability to be productive in these environments. And, productivity looks very different than it perhaps did even a month and a half ago. And that's not to say that we're at 100% productivity. And as you and I have spoken in our group, like, we've all had to be a little kinder to ourselves. We've had to be, just a little more mindful that this is very unprecedented times. And you would expect a business owner to provide that same level of care and concern. They still have a business to run. So in a lot of cases, what's really important too is for business owners to take a bit of a deep seat and say, okay, I know what may not be working as well in these conditions, but also to take a look and say, okay, well, what's working while we're here? Like, what employees are getting really motivated and empowered by the changes, and they've been able to dig in. How have they been showing up, and how have they been presenting differently? So I'm also encouraging business owners during this time as well. They too need to be taking note of what it is that's been really impactful and effective that their employees have been doing that have enabled them to maintain a level of productivity, because that's a performance stuff that you want to really capture and maybe try to continue to bring forward in your business as well. So it's not just about the programs. I'm also encouraging a lot of businesses right now. It's not the ideal time to be thinking about, how to manage your employees in the future. For sure, it's hard to do that. But in the same respect, if you do have some downtime, there's a lot of projects and programs that HR is that kind of get shuffled to the corner of the desk, and, it's too busy or it's not the right time. Maybe it's time to pick that up and perhaps kind of roll it over, take a look at it, decide whether or not that's something that's going to fit your business. And if it is, then, decide that maybe now is the time to look at it. When I think of that, and we can talk about this in a second, but when I think of that, I think about policies and procedures, or I think about performance programs, or even taking a look at your org structure, which I'm highly encouraging right now, because your organizational structure is going to look tremendously different at the end of COVID. There's no question. So take a little bit of time and just take a deep seat, and maybe instead of being productive, be creative with your business and the way that you engage with your employees, because as we move forward, that's going to be really, really important.
Excellent. Wow. What's going to happen on the other side of this, Christine?
The $1 million question, I think everybody wants to know. A lot of speculation, obviously, and we're calling this era right now, we're calling it the pre-vaccination era, and then we'll be post-vac. era, and people are speculating that'll be 12 to 18 months, and what will business look like going forward. This is my opinion only. I have to just put it out there from a lot of what I've read and what I'm seeing. This is to businesses what 9/11 was to travel and flight, where it was an impactful event. It was unprecedented. It impacted the world, and the way that we've come, the way that we come through it is probably going to change so much of the way that we engage. We engage with our employees. We engage with our clients. We're going to see a lot of businesses that are going to have a second thought on their bricks and mortar, I suspect. I'm hoping that for some businesses, they'll recognize that, work flexibility and hour flexibility is something that they may want to consider, because they may have found that some of their employees were tremendously more engaged and productive when they were able to flex their hours or really capitalize on some of the work-life balance. So there may be some shifts and changes to the traditional way in which we do business. 100% for sure. It just in my gut, I just know that each company is going to need to have appropriate business hygiene or safety protocols when it comes to, perhaps a step down approach to social distancing. How are they going to maintain a level of safety and precaution, both with their employees and also with the clients that they interact and engage with as well? So taking a look at what that protocol and what that policy will look like on the other end is going to be really, really critical. I suspect too, as we move forward into the future, this is like an emergency response plan that most companies will have in different ways, shapes, and forms. So making sure that you capitalize and take note of some of the things that, you have identified as being really critical for your business, like a communication strategy, or how do you set up your IT for a remote business quickly, point of sale options if you were trying to bring your business online, how to ensure that your employees had all the right equipment and access to the right information, etc. Like, it's really, the level of pivot that we've seen with so many businesses is just amazing to me. Like, I mean, if you talk about the silver lining, there's just so much good that has come out of such just a terrible situation in many cases that, we want to make sure that that's something that we continue to bring forward as well. So, and then the final thing, because in many cases businesses had to really kind of reduce their staff, is making sure that you have a critical position plan. So which positions and which key responsibilities and roles need to be maintained, and you need to have backup for, so that your business is able to continue to function in the event that, let's say, one of your employees wins $1 million or decides to retire or what have you, that you've got backup for that, so that your business can continue to function seamlessly, or as seamlessly as possible.
Excellent. Well, I'm just sitting here thinking about another BNI member that you helped, and I remember when you two were talking about a job description, she was explaining everything that the previous person had done, and you then said, well, what would you like her to do? And I remember this person saying, I never thought I could make a wish list of what I wanted an employee to do. And I know she is so thrilled that this person, who's sort of her right arm person, has now taken so much weight off her shoulders. And so instead of constantly working in her business, she now has the ability to sit there and, as you're saying, taking the time to plan all kinds of things that she will be able to implement because she now has extra time. So would going over job descriptions of certain employees at this time also be?
Yeah, and I think it's a great point, Dalene. And right now, I think what's happening, that's happening organically, as businesses are deciding, if they qualify for the wage subsidy program, or if they've had to lay off to ensure that their employees get the CERB or the CERB program. Really, that's what they're doing is, okay, what's the critical elements, or what part of this job is not going to exist in the future, or what part of this job do we really need to exist? I have one client that is in New Brunswick right now, and when we hired for one of the positions, they thought that this tiny little element was all that the job really required, and what it was computer skills and abilities. So they're like, no, because we've got HR, or we've got IT support. So as long as they're able to function within these platforms, that will be okay. And what they're finding right now is they have needed to really rely on this individual's technical expertise in order to maintain that level of communication, and almost like troubleshooting with some of their clients. So, checking your job descriptions and checking your job descriptions on a regular basis is important. But right now, as you're trying to figure out what the new norm is, the biggest thing to do is really start to identify, what did this employee really bring to the table that I think is tremendously critical, that the job description doesn't reflect, or I didn't recognize when I hired this person. Like, a lot of what we're seeing right now is when we talk about productivity, we're recognizing there's some people that are getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning and working through part of their day because they've got children that are getting up at 7 or 8 o'clock, and those early hours are so critical. So initiative and self-driven and organizational skills, all the things that we used to talk about as being soft skills, well, those are the critical drivers of productivity and success for people that are working in an isolated capacity. So job descriptions, bar none, but when you're looking at the job descriptions, really appreciating the fit, and also the attributes part, not just that experience part, because it's easy to say, well, you've done this job before, but it's the how they do the job and get the job done that's really important.
Huge. Wow, you just brought up some phenomenal points that I learned things I didn't even know I wanted to know, Christine. So I know you are unique, but tell me what's unique about Engage HR. I'll let you say that because I could talk all day about how amazing I think you and your business practices are.
Well, thank you. So I've been in the business of HR now for about, it's actually over 20 years now, which is remarkable because I don't feel like I aged a day. I may have aged about 400 days since COVID started, but and the one thing that I found over and over again in my 20 years is people are people. Businesses change, and businesses are all incredibly unique, but people are people, and the manner in which you interact and you work and you engage with people, it's got to be that authenticity, it's got to be that genuineness. And we talk a lot about leadership styles, etc., but to me it is about those interactions, and they need to be at the personal level, and they need to be humanistic, they need to be authentic, they need to be genuine, they need to be real. And anytime that I have found any level of success in my, either in my career or with my business, is that I try to meet people where they are and really understand where they are, and I don't change who I am when I'm talking to the CEO, or if I'm talking to a brand new employee that just walked through the door. Like, I think people all need that level of authenticity and genuineness. So, I bring with me just a real common sense approach. If it doesn't make sense for your business, I don't want to build it. I don't want to do it. I don't want you to feel obligated. Like, it's got to make sense, or otherwise it just really turns into beautiful shelfware that nobody reads or nobody adheres to, and it doesn't add any value. So I'm really, really mindful of the fact that it's got to fit. So if that fit means that you need to pick up the phone once or twice a month just to get some really solid HR advice, great. If that means that you need to have somebody sitting in your office 2 or 3 days a week because you're going through a huge transformation, that's fine too. So, I have a lot of clients, and I've had clients just over COVID that have reached out because they just have a little small question, or they just have a little tiny need, that they would rather have the peace of mind and the expertise to know, okay, well, I know that we've handled this correctly. So, I flex, I guess, is the easiest thing to say. And I do pivot. I pivot to meet the needs, and I try to anticipate the best that I can some of the needs that they need to be out in front of. So yeah, I think that's what makes me unique. I swear I won't hear, but you know what? I do. So I'm not your traditional HR person. I usually have the best jokes, and I try to keep it as real as I can, because for me, the fun part is really making those connections with your with your employees and your clients. And I'm not stuffy, so I don't think that my practice, and I don't think my business should be stuffy either.
You're real, Christine, genuine, sincere, real. But you just gave me another thought. Oh my goodness, company manuals either need to be made right now if you don't have one, or sure need to be updated, don't they?
Yeah, I would say if there's one thing that COVID-19 probably did for a lot of businesses is realize that doesn't matter if it's a big or small playbook, having a playbook to go to so that you've got the same answers going to all the employees, or the employees have something they can access so they're not calling their business owner every day, is just, it's really critical. And, you know, the one thing that I you know, how many people in this world are going to say this, but I enjoy writing policies. But one thing I've really noticed is there's a tremendous value in writing a really good employee policy manual. And it can be as big or as small, but if it talks in the language that really reflects the culture of the company, it's a great way to stay connected with your employees, because everybody's reading the same stuff. They hear your voice in it. They know your humanity, depending on how generous you are with some of your policies. But it also gives you peace of mind to know that you're doing things consistently and that you've thought it through. So yeah, it's a really nice polish to a small business. It's a real essential need for an employee that, you know, is, you know, in some cases, like most of us, sitting at home trying to figure out or how to navigate through some questions that they might have.
Yep. Oh yeah, and to protect both the employer and the employees, right? Well, listen, this was such a treat to talk to Christine Isnor from ingagehr. My name's Dalene Allen, Executive Director of BNI Nova Scotia, and we'll get through this, won't we, Christine? COVID-19.
Listen, it's all just about breathe, reboot, and pivot. That's all I keep saying. I keep telling myself that. And I think there's one thing that we've learned is that we are incredibly resilient and terribly optimistic. So yeah, we'll absolutely get through it. And thank you.
And we have things in our toolbox we never knew we could develop. You go have a great day. Thanks.